Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective. A lot to get into today. We're going to be talking about Russia, and there's a hot button topic if I've ever seen one. Of course, we've got me, Rucka, and a guy who, the Russians wish they had him as an asset. Some would say they used to. If we look through some of the skeletons in his closet, he has a dark past philosophically, and the Russians, they should have utilized that when they had him. But enough about that. Let's put aside the past and let's talk about the present. Nikos Sotarikapoulos.
Yes, hi Rucka, hi everyone. So the present is that today there was this report that became big news in the United Kingdom about how Russia, how far they meddled in their internal affairs. There was apparently something on the Scottish independence referendum. There was not that much, everyone expected to say, oh, Brexit happens because of the Russians. So there are two things I want to discuss today. The one is this, what is not so much what Russia is doing, because I don't really know about that, but how Russia is portrayed. But also maybe we get the chance to discuss a bit more about whether it's okay to intervene in other countries when we are the good guys and when we do it for a good cause. And I have to say that foreign intervention was very important in my political awakening, because my first politicization was when the Serbs, when the NATO bombed Serbia in 1999. And I was together with the 97% of the Greek population that we supported our Orthodox brothers, the Serbs. So the idea was that America is evil because, yes, maybe Milosevic is not the best guy in the world, but still you don't have a right to intervene. And the same thing happened again with 2003. So the way it was framed back then is that a country should not intervene in another sovereign country, because the sovereignty of a country is the most important thing. Even more if this country is democratically elected. So, and the idea was, there was in Serbia, Milosevic was not the best guy, but there was something like a democracy. So this means you haven't got a right to intervene. So what comes first, sovereignty or a sense of morality, of saying, well, this country is doing bad things, so we should send our secret agents and maybe sabotage the regime?
Well, this is a very advanced level subject. Let's be clear. I mean, we're basically here on this show and in this organization to promote a philosophy, and a philosophy deals with the fundamentals. So now we're being called upon to discuss an advanced level application of philosophy in politics, namely foreign affairs or foreigners intervening in our business and us intervening in their business. And it's very, very advanced. So everyone take it with a grain of salt, and we'll try our best. Of course, anything in politics is kind of the final stage of the game, or close to the end stage of the game. The first question to ask is, what is the nature of man? How does man need to live? And that later can be used to map out the best political system. You asked, what comes first, sovereignty or a sense of morality? The two are ultimately inseparable, let's be clear. When people reject individualism in morality, they end up clinging to the nation state as the only glue that can tie us together, lest we devolve into anarchy and tribal warfare. The solution to tribal warfare, of course, in this instance, is largely being pushed as a bigger tribe, the nation tribe. Now, we're not anarchists. We do believe in a proper state with a proper purpose of protecting the rights of the individual. And then whatever the nation does, whatever the country does, whatever the government does, needs to be related to protecting the rights of the individual. In some cases, it means going to war. In some cases, it means maybe espionage overseas and assassinations. These are very advanced level questions of how exactly to carry that out. But sovereignty is not a starting point, and it's not an end point. Sovereignty is just kind of one piece of the puzzle, folks.
Yes, and this is one of, I think international affairs is one of the place where there's like no philosophical discussion. And in some way I can understand Why? So, for example, today is one of these days where the escalation in the Eastern Mediterranean between Greece and Turkey is at the very, very high. So they have their military ships out, we have our military ships out, and there's the usual kind of tension. So when you are in front of the prospect of war, or of something that could escalate to war, quite often people say that this is where naked power matters. This is where we throw principles out of the window. And this is why quite often in otherwise very reasonable people, the most popular, let's say, international relations theory is what they call realism. And realism goes back to one of my ancestors, to how do you pronounce it? Anyway, Thukydides in Greece, Thucydides, however you people pronounce it. And when he describes the conflict between Athens, which was the empire of the time, and Milos, which was like a small island, there's this very famous dialogue which includes the phrase, quote, "The strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must." So the Athens are trying to persuade the millions that you have to surrender because we're going to crush you. So what someone would say is, look, you people talk about morality all you want, but even if you have your very beautiful, laissez-faire, free, rational country, and China somehow is a superpower and is about to crush you, then power is the only coin, the only currency in international relations. Now, I'm giving you I'm playing the devil's advocate, but there is something, I think, to that. But I think we should go a step beyond. So, for example, let's say we end up in 30 years with China being this kind of superpower and this international bully. There are questions to be asked. Who allowed, for example, to China that stage in the international system? Who went there and visited them because they want to kind of to outmaneuver Soviet Union? So at the end of the day, although I find realism having a lot of legitimate points, I think that the questions of morality are always there, and they kind of explain how we ended up where we are. So if Turkey, for example, is aggressive or whatever, then it means at some point in the past, we allowed some stuff, or the international community or whatever, if there is such a thing. At some point, they said, let's do what works now. And that's why we come back to pragmatism. When you say that pragmatism is the enemy. When you have to take this kind of realist approach, odds are that many others did not, and many others took the pragmatist line. Again, I threw too much on the table, but yeah, so realism and power.
Look,
so for example,
I mean,
yeah, sorry, go on.
You have an example?
Yeah, I was about to give an example. So what if, for example, if Israel, let's say, I'm partially making this up, let's say they say that the biggest enemy is Iran, so let's buddy up with Saudi Arabia or other regimes there. Yeah, maybe many there want to kill us as well, but they don't want to kill us as much as the Iranians want to kill us. So let's be buddies with them so that we outmaneuver Iran.
I mean, it's great to use a concrete example to make a point. Look at Israel. Look at how they're doing. Their friendships are tentative, and worst of all, Israel's own self-esteem has suffered as a result of pragmatism, or beyond pragmatism, just guilt for existing and for thriving, to the point where Israel feels guilty even effectively defending themselves. So America is, I think the Iranians are correct to say that America is like the great Satan. I mean, I wouldn't use the word Satan, but we're great and Israel is small by comparison, size-wise. But kind of a lot of the world hates both countries for a lot of the same reasons, namely that we are relatively capitalist, individualistic, again, relatively in today's context. And, when it comes to the pragmatism or realism, look, I mean, still, even how do you know what to do? It's like saying, okay, look, I can't be rational. Okay, let's make this about individualism for a moment. As an individual, look, I want to be rational. I want to think long term and live the best life I can and make long term plans. But no one else is doing that. So I'm just gonna live short range and just follow my feelings and and just punch anybody who I feel like punching and form alliances with gangsters on my street. I mean, how's that going to work out for you, right? It's not going to work out for you. So similarly with foreign policy, I understand there's a lot wrong with the world, but if America did what America is supposed to do from the start, and if America were to start doing what's proper now, that is rational self-defense with the explicit purpose of defending the lives and property of Americans, China would no longer be a threat, and probably China would start to resemble America rather than the other way around. The whole world would take note, and the world looks to America. And frankly, I think the Middle East would also look to Israel as a model to emulate. I know it sounds like a crazy thing to contemplate, but if Israel, showed some teeth once in a while, like in a real way, people would want to imitate them. But that's a whole nother episode.
No, it's actually very, very important, because morality, you can be the most, like, quote, realpolitik person in the world. You throw morality out of the window, you are disarmed, metaphorically. See, for example, when Israel believed that, yes, we should exist, it was a country that, compared to the population of its enemies, it was like a dot in a football field, as someone, I think as Netanyahu explained it in the book. And yet it managed to defend itself. It managed to bring havoc to the terrorists who did the horrendous stuff in Munich 72. And then it was the time when the terrorists could not sleep at night because they knew that we are not safe anywhere in the world. Now, this is a very moral stance. It's saying, look, you do something bad, I have a sense of good and bad, and I'm going to punish you. And because we're a country run approximately by a system that allows people to be free, I have better guns, better intelligence, and I'm in a better position to defend myself. So I think it's very important to dismiss this Thucydidean, which I know Thucydides was great, but this supposed dichotomy between morality and realpolitik, I don't think that it's even there. But to return on the issue of Russia, do you think there is some sort of kind of LARPing, like Cold War LARPing with Russia, that we still envision it as this big enemy which battles in our affair, whereas at the end of the day, it's a country with a GDP, it's a country which, by many standards, it's not on a superpower level. And even some military experts says we are kind of overestimating it. So do you think that it also plays a role within the internal policy of the West, that as this kind of boogeyman, or do you think that we should have this kind of skepticism and animosity? And I'm not asking this theoretically. This is something that I'm really curious about, something that I haven't figured out, whether we are overreacting or maybe underreacting to the threat, real or not, from Russia.
This is a question of facts and concrete things happening on the ground. I don't know much about Russia, and frankly, I don't care. The impression I get is that Russia, even China and Iran and basically every possible enemy out there they've been shooting themselves in the foot forever. America is relatively capitalist, so we have more money to shoot ourselves in the foot with more expensive bullets, and we have kind of more time to kill. But the fact America still stands and is a superpower is, at this point, it's kind of by default. Just as America needs to be rational in order to thrive and to prosper and to defend itself, the other countries, if they have aspirations of taking over the world, they would need to be rational. Of course, if they were rational, they wouldn't want to take over the world by force. So a bit of a catch-22 there for them. I can only say, if America is doing what America should be doing, that is, if reason is prevailing, if the government comes to reflect this individualistic view of man as the founding fathers largely leaned towards in their writing and founding principles, if that's what America is doing, then it would be very clear. Don't mess with America. Don't try to undermine us. Don't try to attack us. And people would get the message really quick whenever they try anything. I think another question here is it an attack on America for, let's say, Russia to, buy Facebook ads or whatever it is that they were accused of doing? And again, this is very advanced. This is very advanced. But my opinion at the moment, and this will upset a lot of people, I don't see a problem with anyone around the world buying ads anywhere in the world. It's free speech. And look, if Joseph Stalin himself buys Facebook ads, does that mean America is going to start voting communist? No. I mean, America, we're turning communist on our own intellectuals in our universities. And at the height of the Cold War, Americans were nominating, non-capitalist, mixed economy, pragmatist politicians to represent us. So Russia was never America's problem. They're just kind of like what we're afraid of becoming, but we're doing it to ourselves. So free speech, kind of like immigration among free nations, should be free and open. And if Russians want to buy Facebook ads to promote a certain candidate that they want Americans to vote for, Americans have volition. We have agency to decide if we want to listen to those ads or not. We can definitely draw attention to the fact that they're buying those ads, but I don't see it as like foreign intervention. But again, maybe I could be wrong on this particular issue. This is very advanced application of political philosophy to a concrete issue. But there's my sort of take.
I have 3 asterisks on that. The first is, it's a question, what is the status of the other country? So for example, if you're Israel and Hezbollah, which is basically on war with you, goes to buy ads on Facebook, then you could have a completely different discussion. Now, you go one step below, like a country which is, let's say, not friends, but you're not at war. I think, as you said, we should at least, it's in our best interest to know. I think if a foreign government has some ulterior motives, at least, our special services should know. Sorry, the security services should know. So I don't think it's exactly the same as if, the Koch Foundation or the Soros Foundation or whoever is the evil in most people's minds does. So because these people don't own nukes or whatever. So that's slight, although I don't think we disagree, because you also said that. Mm-hmm. But I want to make another point, and we'll close with that. There's something that really annoys me to the people who are obsessed with Russia meddling. That, it's because of Russians that Trump won, it's because of Russians that Brexit won. And this is that it does 2 things. A, it shows how detached the intellectual elites are from reality. Because the only reason they could believe that people turned their back to them is because of the Russians. Like, as if there's no other way that Hillary Clinton could have lost an election if it weren't for the Russians. Or if there's no other way why people would turn their back to the uninspiring central planners of the European Union if it weren't the Russians. That's the one problem. The second problem is it also says something about how they see us, how they see the public. They think that we're completely unthinking automatons, that on such a big issue like Brexit, for example, that we were thinking about it for years, that dominated the public dialogue, that the only reason we went to vote Brexit is because we saw this, here's a bot, it's telling me vote Brexit. Oh yeah, I'll go for Brexit. This tells you a lot about how these people see us and how seriously they take our capacity to reason.
Yeah, look, there's no question that the materialistic, deterministic view that people have of people that kind of ends up shaping laws or what people advocate for law. So there should be a limit then on how much you can donate to a candidate, because if the candidate has enough money, he can just brainwash everyone into voting for him. That's the way people see people. But again, all roads lead to the philosophy classroom and education. And it's not true. People can choose for themselves. They can decide for themselves, which is why the left is still frustrated. As much as they're sort of winning, they're also frustrated and getting angry at the fact that we're not completely nihilist, communist, egalitarian, Cambodian, whatever it is they're trying to bring about. Just lest I end up sounding like a pacifist libertarian, I was talking about it in the context of sort of a relationship between like America and Russia, where I'm not sure that Russia is actively trying to hurt Americans. But when it comes to a country, let's say Iran, who are explicitly and openly saying death to America. So there's no question there. It's not It's not hushed like in Saudi Arabia, and it's not kind of confusing and Russian like in Russia. It is blatantly open. In such a case, as a country like that, Iran may not buy Facebook ads here. I mean, they wouldn't be able to if we would have, if America would have dealt with them a long time ago. But no, I mean, when someone is directly, actively inciting and threatening against Americans, those people may not speak freely on American soil, and Americans cannot advocate for that national country while the war is for that nation while the war is on. So now I went from sounding like a libertarian pacifist. Now I'm actually saying free speech actually is limited in time of war when it comes to advocating for the enemy. So absolutely, but I want to differentiate. There are countries we're actively at war with, and then there's countries that we're kind of in a cold sort of relationship with. So I know I opened that can of worms right when we're out of time, but no, yeah, when in time of war, everyone needs to just fall back while the war is going on. But again, pragmatism brings about these endless open-ended wars where it's never really declared and it's never
exactly
what. So it becomes impossible to deal with these exact situations. So I realize how complicated it is. But yes, now I made sure to piss off everybody in case there was anyone who felt left out.
Good. So we pissed off everyone without being Russian bots. So good for. Although if we were, we wouldn't declare it openly. So I don't think anyone is reassured. So more on that in the future. Be safe. No, that was more to my co-paddlers because everyone is worried that we might go to war. But hopefully, reason and individualism, if only, would prevail, and the world would be a better place. Anyway. Have a good evening, everyone, a good day and a good afternoon, wherever you are. Bye-bye.